What if the reason you feel exhausted after social gatherings isn't because you're antisocial, but because you see what others don't? Long before anyone speaks, you sense the undercurrents, the silent tension between two people, the forced smile hiding sorrow, the subtle shift in energy when someone lies. Carl Jung believed that such sensitivity was not ordinary. It was a rare form of perception, one deeply tied to the unconscious mind. You are not simply observant, you are tuned in. And while that might sound like a gift, it rarely feels like one. To perceive what others avoid is to walk in a different world, one where silence screams, glances speak volumes, and the air itself can carry grief. You might walk into a room and instantly feel the weight no one mentions, the secrets vibrating beneath casual laughter. This intuitive knowing can become a source of inner conflict. On the outside, everything seems fine. On the inside, you are unraveling puzzles no one else even sees. And when you speak up, you often become the target, not the hero. People dislike the mirror that shows them what they are not ready to face. So instead, you stay quiet. You hold your insight like a fragile truth, waiting for someone who can hold it with you. And in that waiting, the world begins to feel distant, like you are behind a pane of glass, seeing life happen, but never quite belonging to it. Jung understood this loneliness. He saw that people who carry this kind of sight often feel isolated, not because they are broken, but because they are ahead. If this sounds like you, it's not your fault. It's your perception. And it might just be the beginning of your deepest power. Have you ever noticed how telling the truth can make you the villain in someone else's story? You say something small, maybe even with care. "You look tired today," or "I don't feel right about this situation." Yet, instead of gratitude for your honesty, you are met with defensiveness, anger, or cold withdrawal. Why does this happen? Because the moment your words strike the raw nerve of another person's denial, you become the mirror they are desperate to shatter. Carl Jung observed that many people cannot face the reflection of their own shadow, so they attack the one who holds up the glass. It is easier to blame the truth-teller than to look inward. This dynamic is painfully familiar in everyday life. Think of the woman who notices her partner drinking more than usual. She whispers, "I think you might be leaning on that too much," only to be accused of nagging or making drama. Or the man who tells his boss, "Something in this plan doesn't feel sustainable," and suddenly he is labeled as negative, resistant, or not a team player. In families, it can be even more brutal. A daughter points out her mother's favoritism toward a sibling, and overnight she becomes the ungrateful child. The truth is not rejected because it is wrong, but because it unmasks a reality that someone is desperate to keep hidden. Jung explained that the psyche protects itself through projection. When confronted with an uncomfortable truth, the ego often refuses responsibility and instead pushes the discomfort outward. The person hearing your words feels exposed, so rather than ask, "Why does this touch me so deeply?" they lash out, "Why are you attacking me?" Your sensitivity becomes their accusation. Your insight becomes their evidence against you. And so, the one carrying awareness is turned into the problem. But what if the real issue isn't your honesty, but their unreadiness? What if your role in these moments is not to silence yourself, but to understand that the resistance you face is a reflection of their own shadow? Jung believed that what irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The reverse is also true. What irritates others about you often has nothing to do with you, but with the war they are fighting within themselves. This leaves you with a question. How do you keep speaking your truth without letting it destroy your peace? Healing begins when you stop confusing someone else's rejection with a verdict on your worth. Their anger is not evidence that you were wrong. It is evidence that your words reached a place they have not yet learned to face. Instead of collapsing into shame, you can stand firmly in self-knowledge. I saw what I saw. I felt what I felt. Their denial does not erase my truth. Of course, this does not mean every truth needs to be spoken everywhere. Jung taught that timing, context, and readiness are part of wisdom. Sometimes silence protects your energy. Sometimes restraint is not self-betrayal, but self-preservation. Yet, when you do speak and the backlash comes, you can remember, the storm is not about you. You only happened to step into the space where another soul's shadow was hiding. So ask yourself this: have you ever been blamed simply for noticing? Have you been turned into the difficult one just for naming what was already there? Share your experience below, because your story may help someone else realize that they are not the problem. They are the mirror. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt an invisible heaviness before anyone even spoke? As if your body knew something your mind hadn't caught up to yet? For those who see too much, this is not imagination. It is the subtle yet relentless sensitivity of those Jung called the deeply perceptive, the ones wired to pick up on the undercurrents that others overlook. But what happens when your gift turns against you? Imagine a woman in her 40s sitting across from her spouse at dinner. The conversation is polite. The smiles are practiced. The plates are full. Yet something feels hollow. Her stomach tightens, not from the food, but from an unspoken truth. The connection is dying. There has been no betrayal, no fight, no confession, and yet she already knows. She is the quiet predictor. Weeks later, he leaves, and everyone asks her, "Were you shocked?" But she had been grieving long before it ended. Her body, heart, and intuition had already whispered the verdict, while others were still listening for proof. This is the pain of those who sense too soon. Carl Jung once said, "The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed." But what if the conflict isn't external? What if the conflict is the battle between what you sense and what others deny? To be a body reader, an emotional sponge, or an overwhelmed observer in a world that prizes rationality and visibility means to carry truths that have no witnesses. Jung believed that the unconscious speaks through the body. It carries what the psyche cannot yet speak: the racing heart before betrayal, the jaw that clenches around suppressed rage, the fatigue that follows a conversation where you had to smile while your soul was aching. If you feel drained after every social gathering, if you cry at the news while others scroll past, if you get physically sick after a friend dumps their pain onto you, these are not weaknesses. They are signals. The shadow is trying to speak, and your sensitivity is its language. So what do we do when our perception becomes our prison? When does our gift of insight make us hypervigilant, anxious, or emotionally saturated? Jung would suggest not repression, but integration. The goal is not to turn off your perception, but to transform how you relate to it, to realize you are not broken. You are simply holding what others refuse to see. But here is the question that opens the door to healing. What if your ability to feel deeply is not just about absorbing, but about discerning? Can you sense the difference between your emotions and those you've absorbed from others? Can you recognize when your intuition is speaking and when it's just fear rehearsing a trauma script? Most importantly, can you build an inner boundary, not to block the world out, but to keep your truth in? Let's pause and reflect. Do you often feel overwhelmed by people's energy? Have you predicted a breakup, a betrayal, or a death before it occurred? Do you feel everything, yet struggle to explain why? If so, you're not crazy, you're not too much, you're simply carrying an untrained gift. And the moment you stop apologizing for seeing too much is the moment that gift becomes sacred. Tell us below. Which of Jung's 4 types do you resonate with most? And what has your gift taught you about people, pain, and power? Have you ever been punished not for what you did, but for what you noticed? For simply saying, something doesn't feel right, and then watching a room go silent, a friend pull away, or a family member lash out? This is the burden of those who see too clearly. Your perception does not go unnoticed. It disturbs. And in a world that clings to illusion for safety, the truth is often treated like betrayal. Imagine a man in his 50s, sitting quietly at a family gathering. The jokes are flowing, the food is warm, but something in the room is hollow. His brother keeps changing the subject. His mother smiles too much, her laughter brittle. And his niece, the one who used to sparkle, won't meet anyone's eyes. He says nothing, but his chest feels heavy. Later that night, when he gently asks if something happened, his family erupts. He is making drama, too sensitive, overthinking. But he wasn't wrong. He simply said out loud what everyone else was desperately trying not to feel. Carl Jung taught that the psyche has defenses. What the ego refuses to see, the shadow absorbs. So when someone exposes what's been repressed, it's like shining a light into a dark room, blinding, disorienting, even painful. That's why the emotionally perceptive are often scapegoated. They don't cause the discomfort, they illuminate it. And for that, they're labeled as too intense, too much, or simply not easy to be around. This is the first danger Jung observed. Your truth disrupts group harmony, not because it is false, but because it is too real. Most people don't want to be seen fully. They want to be agreed with, entertained, and emotionally undisturbed. But you, just by existing, invite them into discomfort, and many will reject you for it. The second danger is more subtle. It's the slow erosion of self. When you feel so much from others, when your body absorbs the emotions they won't express, it becomes hard to know where you end and they begin. This is not empathy. This is enmeshment, and it is dangerous. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires separation from the collective. Without it, you live in a fog of other people's pain, constantly trying to fix what you didn't break. And then comes the third danger, isolation. The more you see, the lonelier it gets. Not because you don't want connection, but because you crave real connection, and the world is often addicted to pretense. So you learn to stay quiet. You shrink your truth to protect others' comfort. You smile while your inner voice screams. And eventually you wonder if there's anyone out there who sees as you do. Anyone who could meet your depth without drowning. But here's the question that changes everything. What if your loneliness is not a sign that something is wrong with you, but that something is waking up in you? What if your pain is the initiation into a different kind of life, one built not on performance, but on presence? Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." So maybe the task is not to be understood by everyone, but to stop betraying yourself just to belong. Let us know. Have you ever paid the price for noticing what others avoided? How do you protect your peace without silencing your truth? The comments are your sanctuary. Your voice is not too much. It's exactly what this world needs to hear. Have you ever wondered why some days feel like you're drowning in emotions that aren't even yours? As if your mind becomes the silent landfill for other people's chaos? You walk into a room and instantly feel a heaviness, yet no one has spoken a word. You scroll for 5 minutes and somehow feel anxious, sad, or unworthy. Why does this happen? And, more importantly, how can you protect the sacred inner space where your true self resides? The truth is, the world is not just loud, it's energetically invasive. In this digital age, where everyone broadcasts their emotions, opinions, and projections without pause, those with sensitive psyches absorb it all like emotional sponges. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He believed that in order to preserve one's essence, one must learn to differentiate between what is truly I and what has been unconsciously inherited or absorbed. Without this boundary, the self becomes fragmented. You begin living a life that is not yours, reacting to patterns that are not yours, carrying wounds that don't belong to you. Jung's healing process begins with silence, not as an escape from the world, but as a return to the self. Silence is where your soul becomes audible again. Just 15 minutes a day of intentional quiet, no phone, no music, no conversation, can create a radical shift. In this sacred pause, you begin to feel what is truly yours: your anger, not inherited rage; your sorrow, not your mother's unresolved grief; your desire, not society's reward systems. The chaos starts to separate, and clarity emerges like a ripple through still water. But silence alone is not enough. You must also face your own shadow. Jung warned that without shadow work, the empath becomes a silent martyr, constantly healing others while unconsciously projecting their own wounds. This is how the cycle of emotional entanglement continues. Shadow work is not self-blame, it is self-ownership. When you examine your need to save others or your fear of being disliked for setting a boundary, you take your energy back. Every flaw you integrate is a leak you seal in your energetic system. You stop trying to fix others and instead begin to respect their journey and yours. And then comes the most radical step of all: setting boundaries without guilt. Boundaries are not walls, they are the architecture of self-respect. Jung taught that individuation, the path to psychological wholeness, requires separation. The tree does not apologize for needing sunlight. The healer must stop bleeding to be able to mend. You can still care deeply, but you do not have to carry what is not yours. You can listen without absorbing. You can love without losing yourself. You can walk away, not in anger, but in clarity. So here is the question: what would happen if you stopped trying to be everything for everyone? What if your worth was not measured by how much you endure, but by how deeply you are aligned with your truth? We are living in a time when emotional boundaries are no longer optional. They are spiritual survival. To heal is to reclaim your energy. To protect your gift is to become aware of what dilutes it. The more grounded you become in your own emotional center, the less you are pulled into the turbulence of others. You don't shut down your empathy, you refine it. You don't become colder, you become clearer. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege requires protection, not from a place of fear, but from reverence. Your energy is sacred. Your inner world is not a dumping ground for broken people. It is a temple. Treat it as such. So now, let me ask you, have you mistaken guilt for compassion? Have you confused silence for peace? And are you ready to step back, not to disconnect, but to come home to yourself? Tell me in the comments, what are you no longer willing to carry? And what sacred part of you are you ready to reclaim? Have you ever felt lonelier in a room full of people than when you were truly alone? It's a quiet kind of ache, when you speak from your soul and others respond with confusion, defensiveness, or silence. In those moments, it's easy to wonder, am I too much or not enough? But the truth may be something far deeper, something Carl Jung knew intimately. He believed that real healing begins not only within, but in the quality of the relationships we allow ourselves to cultivate. You do not need to be surrounded by a crowd. You need to be seen by the right eyes, held in the right emotional space, and heard without judgment. In today's world, where image has replaced intimacy and speed has eclipsed soulfulness, it's increasingly rare to find those who can sit with your truth without trying to change it. Jung called these rare individuals containers, people who can hold the weight of another's emotions without collapsing, fixing, or fleeing. They are grounded, emotionally aware, and spiritually available. They do not offer shallow advice when you cry. They do not shrink when you express anger. They do not spiritualize your pain to bypass their own discomfort. Instead, they stay with you, present, human, honest. These are the people who are doing their own work, and because they've faced their own shadows, they are no longer afraid of yours. So many of us grew up in environments where emotional expression was punished, dismissed, or minimized. We were taught to hide our mess, clean up quickly, or apologize for needing too much. As adults, this programming lingers. We attract connections that reflect the same dynamics. People who love our light but reject our storms. People who want the healed version of us but are unavailable for the parts still learning how to breathe. This is where pain becomes a mirror, and where the old pattern must be broken. How can you heal if every time you reveal your true self, it's met with rejection or comparison? Carl Jung warned that our psyche is constantly looking for wholeness, and we often project our unmet needs onto others in an attempt to feel seen. But projection cannot replace presence. Until we learn to choose relational spaces that support our truth rather than challenge its right to exist, we remain trapped in emotional recycling, reliving the same dynamics in different costumes. The good news? You don't need many people. You need the right ones. The ones who don't ask you to dim your truth to fit their comfort. The ones who see you unravel and don't flinch. The ones who can say, "I've been there too," not from pity, but from shared humanity. These are the relationships that heal. They don't rescue you. They remind you that you were never broken to begin with. So here's the real question. Who in your life holds space for the full spectrum of your being? Who do you still shrink around, and why? Leave a comment below and reflect with us. Have you ever found someone who truly gets you? Or have you always felt like you had to hide your truth to keep the peace? This isn't about blame. It's about clarity. It's about stepping out of environments that trigger your wounds and stepping into ones that nourish your growth. Not everyone will understand your healing journey, but someone will. And when they do, you'll feel it in your nervous system, not just your heart. That is the beginning of relational safety, and it is where true transformation begins. Have you ever wondered if the very thing that isolates you could also be the thing that saves you? Many people who sense too much spend years wishing their awareness would just go away, hoping to be normal like everyone else. But Carl Jung reminded us that what feels like a curse in one season often becomes the seed of transformation in another. The difference lies in whether you suppress your gift or learn to evolve with it. Think about the quiet moments when your insight showed you a truth long before it was obvious to anyone else. Maybe you predicted a relationship unraveling before the first fight even surfaced. Maybe you felt the tension in your workplace before the announcement of layoffs. Maybe you knew someone was in silent pain before they ever admitted it. These flashes of perception can feel haunting, but Jung would say they are not meant to torment you. They are invitations to step into your role as a conscious witness, someone who brings light to what is hidden. Of course, the danger is in turning inward and carrying this all alone. If you see much but never learn how to use it, the gift calcifies into anxiety. You might withdraw, second-guess yourself, or even resent your own awareness. This is why Jung emphasized the turning point. Perception becomes wisdom only when you accept it. To reject your awareness is to reject a part of your own soul. To embrace it is to step onto a path that connects you with something larger. The truth is, the world needs people who can see beyond masks. It needs those who do not just repeat the noise, but notice the silence beneath it. Healing is not about hiding your insight, but about refining it so it can serve both you and others. Imagine a world where your awareness is no longer a weight, but a compass, guiding you toward authenticity, deeper love, and choices that honor your true self. So here is the question for you. What would change if you stopped treating your gift as a flaw and started carrying it as a path? Would you see your differences as burdens or as the very qualities that make you ready for the life you were always meant to live? The mirror you hold up to others is also the mirror of your destiny. Jung's wisdom reminds us that the gift is never the problem. The only problem is forgetting that it was always meant to lead you forward. What if the very thing that makes you feel too much is actually proof that you are standing at the edge of human evolution? Carl Jung himself knew the torment of seeing too deeply. He fell into despair because his mind opened doors faster than his heart could carry them. Yet out of that collapse, he found his calling. The visions that nearly broke him became the foundation of his life's work. His journey whispers to us that the moment you think you are shattering is often the moment your real path begins. The truth is, perception is not a flaw to hide, but a lamp to refine. You are not here to numb your awareness or force yourself into the blindness that others find comfortable. You are here to learn how to hold what you see without drowning in it. Jung's wisdom reminds us that you are not broken. You are simply ahead of your time. What unsettles others in the present may become their survival map in the future. You are living in tomorrow's awareness today. Think of the times you noticed what others denied. You saw the cracks in relationships, the truth in someone's eyes, the silence after a betrayal, or the need hidden beneath a friend's smile. They may have pushed you away, but your gift was not wrong. It was only early. Your sight is not here to shame others or elevate you above them. It is here to bring light where darkness lingers, to name what is unsaid, and to guide you toward a life of integrity. Yet here lies the challenge: seeing without silencing yourself, and carrying without collapsing. The danger is not in your gift, but in forgetting how to use it with wisdom. To carry it with bitterness turns it into a weapon. To carry it with humility turns it into healing. When you choose the latter, your gift no longer isolates you. It becomes the bridge that connects you to those who are ready for truth, authenticity, and growth. So the next time you feel too much, remember Jung's message: you are not an accident. You are a mirror polished earlier than others. Your role is not to save the world, but to embody what it looks like when truth and compassion walk together. Even if applause never comes, even if others resist, your life itself becomes proof that seeing deeply is not a curse, but a path. Perhaps the question is not whether you see too much, but whether you will honor what you see. Will you hide it to protect the comfort of others, or will you carry it as the gift it has always been? Jung's final reminder is simple: You were never meant to silence your vision. You were meant to live it, breathe it, and let its light quietly reshape the world. If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.